Hello and welcome to something a little bit new from us as we present Forage Fest 2 by Krone. Now, as you will all know, due to the current situation, many of the agricultural shows and events have had to have been cancelled this year, leaving manufacturers such as Krone without a platform to show off its latest kit. However, where there's a will, there's a way, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Krone's UK's marketing manager, Mr. James Duggleby, who's basically going to run through some of the manufacturer's latest products and developments it would otherwise be showing off at these events. So, without further ado, James, if you just want to give a quick overview of what we'll be discussing today, just some of the highlights of what people can expect.
We're going today to look at our full range of forage equipment as much as we can. We're going to look at the highlights, the key features, bits and pieces. Put on pretty much the same kind of show we'd put on had we been at the Grassland event in a couple of weeks' time. So we'll go through a couple of the mowers, Teddors, rakes, round balers, square balers, forage wagons, and finishing off at the end with a little bit of a treat with the forage harvesters, because actually on the 20th of May, the day we're going live, is the 20th anniversary from when the first Big X rolled out of the assembly hall in our factory in Germany. So yeah, pretty special day.
So if you guys are watching, you can ask questions throughout, use the chat feature, and hopefully either myself or James or somebody from the Krone staff should be able to answer your questions, maybe about the products or what the manufacturer's up to, anything like that. So we'll dive straight into it then, and we'll kick off with dropping a bit of grass and the mowers, the mower range. So, James, obviously there's a lot of mowers on the market. There's all your big household names, such as yourself, and then there's a lot of sort of new names to the market coming through as well. But basically, we'll kick off with, what makes your mowers stand out? What makes your mowers so special?
I think really what makes our mowers special is the fact, they're made in-house by us, they're manufactured by us, and because of that, we have several key and unique features, and features which have stood the test of time. So the mower bed, fully welded steel mower bed, so no chance of the oil leaking, gives rigidity, longevity. Inside there, we have what we call the smart cut bed, so a satellite gear drive system. Allows what we call the water ski effect. So we can basically get the disc angled nicely forward, so we get a good crop flow over the bed without scalloping the grass. Then we have safe cut disc protection. We have duo grip way of mounting and pulling the mowers. Doesn't matter whether it's a front, rear, trailed, etc. And we also have the hooked tine conditioner designed to wilt the grass quickly. So yeah, there's quite a few features there we carry through the range, which really go together no matter which mower we're looking at. And I think we're going to look at some of the mowers in a bit more detail shortly. Doesn't matter which mower we have, the core, the DNA runs out the whole range.
It's quite an extensive range that you guys got and that you've developed over the years. So can you just give us a quick sort of, just an overview of your mower range?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So we have one of the biggest mower range on the market, if not the biggest mower range. I did try to count once and I lost count quite quickly. So we go, from starting at the big end. We go from the big self-propelled Big M mower all the way down through front-mounted, trailed, butterflies, rear-mounted. We go down to the smaller active mow, finishing down at the smallest width of 2 meters. So we have something in the range, we feel, for everybody, whether you're a small farmer or one of the biggest contractors. We also give, the options to condition, not to condition, and we'll talk a bit about that later on.
So let's just kick off with the sort of farmer spec machine that you just mentioned there, the active mower. What's in the active mower range then?
So yeah, it's quite a simple machine. It's a non-conditioner machine. It's a plain mower, end mounted on the back of the tractor. So from 2 meters up to 3.6, going up in 0.4, so 40 centimeter chunks. It does what it says. It's a smaller version of the Easy Cut, but still on the same principle. So safe cut, smart cut, etc. Fully welded bed, but just smaller, lighter, takes less tractor horsepower, and more importantly, is lighter to lift.
Moving up the range, then we come to the Easy Cut mowers, of which you've got quite a few front and rear mounted machines, butterfly, single mowers. So we kick off with the front mowers. Now, you guys have got a couple of types of front mower. Traditionally, you always used to be push type on the front, but now you've come up with what you call pull type, or the suspended type. So just give a run through of why you come up with a pull type as well as having the push type, and maybe some of the pros and cons of each method.
So yeah, you say traditionally, James, that we offer the push type mower. Well, years back, go back even further, we used to offer the pull-type mower as well. The reason we offer two isn't because one will follow the ground better. They will both do as equally as good job if set up correctly. It's more to do with application.
Moving on to the rear mowers then. Obviously, you've got a lot to talk about there. So let's just kick off with maybe some of the more popular machines that you guys have been selling in the UK.
Rear mowers, we say we have everything from 2.8 up to 10 metres wide, with or without conditioner, with or without groupers. But on the rear itself, the most popular machine we sell in the UK is what we call the EasyCut R320 CV. So this is a 3.2 metre rear-mounted mower with a CV tying conditioner. Just what it says. 3 metres, so that classic 10-ish foot width. Condition the swath down. Now, we're often asked whether we should, why do we offer conditioner and a plain mower? What should I use? It's quite simple, really. It's really down to the farmer, the contractor, how they're operating, how they're going, as to whether they want to condition or not. A conditioner will obviously wilt grass quicker, but if it was to rain, it will absorb the moisture quicker again. So if you're wanting a slower, more controlled wilt, maybe a plain mower is the one to do. Also, as well, with a modern mower conditioner, one of ours, the possibility of spreading full width and putting it into a swath, it could be just in a matter of seconds at the back of the machine by the operator. So actually, if it's wet going, you might want to bring it into a swath to let the ground dry underneath, and then you can ted it out. Or if it's fully dry underground, you just spread it out fully, condition full width spread, and away we go. So yeah, not a clear answer. It's really about suiting a machine to individual applications, and that's why we tend to have so many different mowers.
That's it, just keeping up that flexibility. And also, as well, as an option, you've also got groupers as well. Is this something that you've seen increasing in popularity, or is it quite a niche thing? Sort of what kind of user are using groupers?
Yeah, so traditionally, groupers are very popular on trailed mowers. But as the industry, as we've evolved, our techniques have evolved and changed. Contractors on the bigger mowers tend to be using groupers. So if they're going into stony condition where they maybe don't want to ted and rake, disturb stones into the swath, damaging the forager, they may want to use that. Or in later cuts, when the grass is drier, it's the height of summer, it's a lighter crop, they can just group and make one swath. But also we've seen a trend into the AD, the biogas sector. So those wanting to cut whole crop and pick it up with a grass header on a forager, they're looking to group. So traditionally, groupers were all about working with a conditioner mower, the CV mower, but then a couple of years ago, we launched a set of butterfly mowers, what we call the ECB 950 Collects, and they're a 9.5 metre working width set of butterfly mowers with an auger group on the back. So it's more of a gentle handling of the whole crop in particular. So we're not suffering that the seed loss when it's been grouped into the swath ready for collection.
Right, well, so we'll move on to the big daddy of your mower range, and we move on to the first self-propelled machine of today, which is the big M450. Go on, hit me with some key features, James.
Yeah, so we produced the first big M back in '96, and at the time it was like, wow, a self-propelled mower. This will never take off, and here we are some 25 years later, and we're still selling big M's around the world. Not as popular in the UK, probably more to do with the fact there tends to be more high horsepower tractors in the UK, so combination butterfly mowers are a bit more popular. But you go across the water into Ireland and some parts of Europe, etc., where they don't have the bigger tractors. Yeah, the Big M is very much a popular mainstay machine. Key features, the design. What makes it so special is its maneuverability. So the wheels, it's rear wheel steered, and the rear mowers are in front of the rear wheels. So that means when you go around tight corners in small fields, you can really push the mower corners in, mower beds into corners and get that maneuverability. Combine that with a steering front mower, an optional steering front mower, you can really, you don't have to worry about striping, you don't have to worry about going around corners, trees, obstacles, etc. So what we'll tend to find, whether you're out in a big field or a small field, with lots of corners, twists, bends, the productivity of a Big M far outstretches, many traditional mowing combinations.
You got the auger crop transfer system,
yeah.
Essentially. Does that allow you to do sort of flexible tricks, as in, you could pull one side in, then maybe when you come back around, you pull the other side in, you can start really piling up the grass or keep it away from the hedge on the first bout or that kind of thing?
By having the groupers work independently and can be raised and able to work hydraulically, so from the cab whilst in motion. Yeah, so you can group one side, one way, and then the other side the other way, and then bring a rake in, and suddenly you're putting, just under 20 meters worth of grass together into one swath using a rake. Or alternatively, if you're on a headland, group the outside swath into the middle, so it moves it away straight away from the debris associated with hedge backs, fences, etc. So tedders and rakes don't have to worry about getting that far into the field. So yeah, a lot of flexibility with the Big M. You combine that with features like obviously it'll take an auto steer system. Any system on the market should work on it, and also section control, so we can start raising and lowering mower beds automatically as you're running out into your short runs. We would always call it a gearing in my part of the world. I don't know what other people call it, but let's call it a short run. That allows for automation there.
Okay, so we have now virtually dropped the grass. Let's talk about tedders and shaking the grass out. And also as well, if you're watching this, remember, keep your comments and questions coming in, more the merrier. So tedders, and in particular working weights, they just seem to be getting bigger and bigger. I remember when I was a lad, I was lucky if I got a PZA bob. But now you're seeing these massive trail machines. So if you just want to kick off with, this is the trend. Tedder trends. There you go, have that one.
Tedder trends, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. James, when we were lads, it was the PZA bob or a woofler or something of that description. The sector's moved on quite quickly, certainly over the last few years. The trend for wider tedders has been driven by productivity. For harvesting equipment's getting bigger. If it's a round baler all the way through to a forage harvester, they're capable of harvesting the crop so much quicker. And you have a finite amount of time to wilt your grass, 24 to 48 hours before you start losing sugars. So if you want to get through the crop and ted it once, twice, three times, in some instances, you need to cover the ground quickly. So if you want to increase productivity with a tedder, go wider. So this has really seen the growth in the tedder sector pushing up into trailed machines. 10 years ago, 10, 11, 12 meter tedder was big. Now 13, 16 meters are commonplace, and we offer the 20 meter tedder as well, which some people choose to go for just because, the importance is now, there for tedding, to try and get that quick wilt.
Just mentioning the importance of tedding and the proper wilting. Now, it's probably unknown to most people that you do various rotors, tedder rotor sizes as well, which suit different jobs and different applications. So what are they?
Good question. So tedder's not just a tedder. We offer three different rotor sizes. We have a 5 tine arm rotor, a 6 tine arm rotor, and a 7 tine arm rotor. So small, medium, and large. So if you want to ted out grass for silage, you just want to throw it out once, shake off the moisture, give it a bit of sun before harvesting it. The larger diameter rotor is the best. If you're wanting to make hay and get that really fine, sort of mix and get a good, even, consistent wilt and a good dry there, you want to go for the smaller rotor, so the 5 tine arm rotor. We then have the middle of the road, which tends to be more popular with contractors and available on all the ranges, but up to the larger ones. The middle size rotor, and that does a bit of best of both worlds. So it'll do a good job in silage and also do a good job in hay.
We've dropped it, we've shook it out. Let's put it into a row, as I call it, a swath, as you call it.
Yeah.
And let's talk rakes. Now, let's kick off with the main point about a rake and the importance of a swath formation. Why is it so important?
It's really important because the swath dictates the efficiency of the harvesting machine. If you get a lumpy, poor-shaped swath, you're going to get a horrible feed into the baler, the forager, the forage wagon. So that's going to affect chop quality. It's going to make lumpy, misshaped bales, potentially get air pockets, etc. in there. So the swath is really key. But often it's it's overlooked. It's overlooked because it should only really exist for about an hour. The rake man comes in, makes the swath, it's followed. Bad swaths are soon forgotten about because they're not seen for very long, but it can have a long-lasting impact further down the line.
Well, Forager driver remembers.
Yeah,
he blames the rake man. The rake man blames the mower man.
Yeah,
the mower
Teddor man as well, yeah.
So how can you make that perfect swath then?
So
Dark art.
the dark art of swath, mate, it's quite simple, really. It's about selecting rotor, your rotor speed and your forward speed. There's no harder set rule for it. In terms of rotor speed, between about 350 to 450 RPM. Forward speed, it's not as critical with tedding, but if you start going up the field too quick, you'll start making a mess. You soon tell. In terms of the rake itself, we always aim for a box-shaped swath because then you get an even mat of crop going into the machine. So we tend to go, for that, and to achieve that, we have something called the Duramax cam track, which has a steep lift out. It lifts out within 55 degrees of the circle going round. So quick lift out means it releases the crop quickly, getting a nice flat-shaped swath. So the time, how you lift the crop, makes a difference. So we have the lift time, which is designed, as the name suggests, to lift the crop as it's been collected. So it lifts it off the ground, gathers the crop more cleanly, and releases it yet again. So it releases more onto the swath. Connecting the tine arm to the cam track is the final piece of the jigsaw, and that is our tine arms. Our tine arms are really rigid, heavy-duty, solid tine arms. You get some which are held onto the machines by, sort of lemon tube style fastening. We designed this cam track for precision. We designed this tine for precision. If you have a bendy, loose, flimsy tine arm in the middle, you're going to lose that control. So a good heavy duty, solid tine arm links the control of the tip, the tip of the tine to the cam track.
A bit more or less susceptible to the edge of the hedge with these ambitious drivers, we'll say.
Yes, and let's not forget the telegraph pole, which soon jumps out. It wasn't there 2 seconds ago, and it's just moved. So
that's it. So, like your mowers and like your Teddors, you've got lots of rakes as well. If you just want to give us a quick overview of the amount of rakes you've got, because you've got singles, you've got twins, you've got 4-rotor rakes, and you've got a big 6-rotor rake in there as well.
Absolutely, yeah, as you say. So single rotor rakes all the way through to the 6-rotor. We don't compromise on build quality, no matter what size of rake you want. So it's the same design, the same build quality of cam track, tines, tine arms, chassis, etc. That's all in there. So single rotor rakes, very simple. The twin rakes, we don't tend to focus in the UK on the twin side delivery rakes. There's 1 or 2 sold, popular on the continent, but never really taken off in the UK. So the rakes we tend to focus are the TC, so that's the trailed centre delivery. And they go from 6.4 metres all the way up to 9.3. We then say, onto the 4-rotor, which we'll touch. We've got a new 4-rotor rake out this year, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then the whopping great big, the Swath 2000 with its 19 metres. But yeah, the real popular machines for us in the UK tend to be the twin rotors. So the little 6.4, the TC 640 rake is really, really great machine for around baling, making the swath around that 1.8 metre wide for feeding into the pickup, round baler pickup. 7.6, 8.8, 9.3 round baler for bigger round balers, maybe square balers, forage wagons, some foragers. They're all in there. And then, onto the big 4-rotor rakes.
That's it. Now, you mentioned you got a new 4-rotor model in there. Can you tell us a little bit more about that one?
Yeah, so it's the Swadro TC 1370 is replacing the Swadro 1400 Plus. Don't be misled by the numbers, because the 1370 actually has a slightly wider working width. The big change on the rake itself, though, is in the suspension. Traditionally, springs have been used for rotor suspension, which is great, but as we adjust your working width, it adjusts the properties of the spring. So the new rake, the 1370, has a hydraulic suspension system, computer controlled, so you dial in the pressure you want to achieve, or the ground pressure you want, on the control box, and regardless of the working width, it adjusts the oil pressure to suit. So that means, as we take the width in and out, we're not raising the rotor off the ground or putting more pressure on. And also on the back, we look towards the rear rotors, and we've increased the number of double tines on each tine arm from 4 to 5. And at the time when the engineers were looking at actually how do we get more crop through the rake, they tried various different options, different numbers of tines on there, different numbers of tine arms. They had different combinations on one side to the other and compared, how the Swath looked. And they decided to keep with the 13 tine arms on the back with the 5 double tines.
Right, so we have virtually dropped the grass, we've virtually tedded it, we've virtually rolled it back up again into some nice even-shaped, box-shaped swaths. Let's move on to round balers, in particular your compressor round balers. Now, you've had a few changes since the last time we saw it at the last grassland event. From what I remember, the compressor baler used to be quite a big, tall machine. Now you've given it a facelift and it's all nice and sleek. So what have you done to the compressor?
Yeah, as you rightly said, James, it's had a facelift. The fundamentals are still there. The flow cameras. They've had new panels, and a W pattern, so a staggered time pattern on the pickup. That's changed in terms of the combi baler, so the wrapper baler combination. They've had that facelift, the same tweaks, but also the wrapper's been sped up from 28 to 32 RPM on the back. Still with the onboard hydraulic system, so if it's been used on an older tractor which maybe doesn't have a good enough oil flow, we don't have to worry there because the baler produces its own oil. In terms of the higher end of the balers, we used to have a range called the Compressor Extreme. That's now given away to the Compressor Plus. So the Compressor Plus have seen the same styling change, the W pattern pickup, but in terms of the combi baler, they've seen some even more, the most changes. So they, as you say, they used to be quite a big machine. Just the sight would often put people off. That's now come down. It's more compact. We're not making any smaller bale, so it's still the same size bale chamber in there. It's just the engineers have been clever how they use the space. So we've also done away with the onboard hydraulics, and we've now gone to tractor hydraulics. The theory being that if you're using a plus baler, you're probably a contractor, a larger scale farmer who has a more modern tractor with an oil flow which can cope. The other element of it as well is that the wrapper at the back. So we've sped the wrapper up now to 36 RPM. Whereas before on the extreme it was down at 32, and that extra oil flow, it's better served from a high capacity tractor rather than an onboard system. So
just talking about the wrapper there, you go from 32 to 36. Does that make much of a difference?
Yeah, if you and I'm not going to bore you all with the maths now, but if you look at if you work out the number of wraps to go on there, etc., you put in the 6 wraps on a 5-foot bale. That can save you sort of around 5, 6, 7 seconds per bale. The other part of it as well with the wrapper, it's linked to a wheel sensor. So keeping safety in mind, if we're going down the field, 36 RPM is fine because no one's going to get on the wrapper. If the baler senses that the wheels aren't turning, i.e. there's no forward speed, the wrapper will automatically reduce down to 32 RPM for safety reasons.
Like a few other round baler manufacturers, you guys are now into applying film on film or net or film. So pros and cons, why would you want to do that?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's technology that first came around back in the early 80s, believe it or not. Krone tried it back in 84 along with a couple of other manufacturers. Never really got it going. It's come back into fashion now. Net's very easy to put on. Net will go on regardless of any weather condition. It does, it's there. But if you're netting and then wrapping film on top, you've suddenly got 2 lots of different plastics to deal with in your recycling. You've also got tiny air pockets when you're putting film on top of net. You get tiny air pockets on there, which obviously is oxygen, which can spoil the fermentation of the silage, meaning that the quality isn't as good as it could be. So by putting film on, you've obviously got 2 advantages. One, your recycling's easy because it's all the same stuff. Cut it off, put it in the recycle bin. Secondly, when you're putting film on top of film, you aren't getting the air pockets. It's getting a completely air-free seal in there. So we haven't got the chance of the oxygen getting in, spoiling the fermentation of the bale.
Ideal. So that's round balers covered. Now, obviously, yep. You do more than just round balers. You've got your big pack square balers as well. Also, as well, if you're watching this and you want to ask any questions, remember, just keep commenting as we go through. Hopefully, one of us will be able to get back to you. So, as mentioned, big pack then. Overview.
Yeah.
What's in the big pack family these days?
Well, how many models? So we go in the big pat family. In terms of baling grass, we go from an 870, which is an 80 by 70 chamber baler, all the way up to the 1290, 120 by 90. We can have that as a HDP to a standard. A couple of notable features we do offer, though, as I said before, we have the HDP baler, so the high density, not really relevant for baling wet grass, but if we're baling hay, we might want to, really dry hay or other dry crops, we might want to utilize that high density, in particular straw. And also as well, we offer the multi-bale system. So that's available on the 80 by 70 baler and the 120 by 70 baler. And that allows the package, the bale, the overall bale, to be split into smaller packages with a minimum thickness of 30 centimeters. So you can take a 2.4 meter bale and you can split that down and you can get 8 bales in there.
And has there been much uptake of the multi-bale?
Yeah, so the original multi-bale on the 120 by 70 was popular, but the downside of it was it's quite a big section still. You think of a bale 1.2 meters wide, 70 centimeters high, 30 centimeters deep. That still takes some lifting. Bring that down into an 80 centimeter wide bale, 70 centimeter high, 30 centimeter deep. And so that's more manageable. That's more like a conventional little bale. So it makes it easier for handling the bale in the field. So collection's easier, road haulage is easier, storage at the other end's easier. But then if you're feeding into young stock pens, calves, into lambs, taking them out onto hillside, feeding sheep, instead of having to worry about taking a big bale, you can quite comfortably split the outer strings and be left with 2 strings still around the smaller bale, allowing you to easily put it on a barrow into the back of a quad trailer, UTV, etc.
Now, your new innovation in the big square baler world, Bale Collect. What's that all about?
Yeah, how could I forget?
I've seen it, but I've not really seen it working or anything like that. So just give us a picture of what's involved with that.
It's quite simple, really. It's a collector of bales, as the name would suggest. It goes on the back of the bale. There we are. Yeah, interview over. Goes on the back of the baler. It's designed to fit to a Krone baler. It's homologated, so we don't have to worry about road legislation, legalization issues, etc. So when we're going down the road, the drawbar extends and it articulates, so it follows corners perfectly well. You don't have to worry about tail swing. When we're in the field, the drawbar retracts, so the baler, the sledge is then directly behind the baler. Obviously, remove the chute. And then the wheels caster, so it does follow around, so the bale's that falling down between the gap. What it lets us do on a 120 wide bale, it allows us to gather up to 3 bales in one. On the 80 wide bale, it allows us to gather 5 bales onto the sledge, all side by side. It doesn't stack them side by side, and then you can release them on the ground. Now you can either release them manually or you can release them automatically. In terms of straw, I know this is a grassland overview, but in terms of straw, people do things like leave them on the headland to speed up collection, etc. But in terms of grass application, one of the interesting parts is you can actually, if we had 3 bales, 120 wide baler on the back, you can actually choose to put 2 bales on there and push them to either side before you're releasing them in the field. That means you have a gap in the middle, so if you're wrapping your bales in the field, you can get in with the wrapper, wrap the bale, drop it off, spin round, pick the next one up.
Right, we are flying through Forage Fest 2. We've been through plenty of products now in the virtual world. I hope you're enjoying this and getting lots from it. Like I say, if you've still got any comments or anything like that, or any questions, keep them coming in, more the merrier. Now, we've got one more product family before we get to the grand finale, which is the Big X. So before we get to that, forage wagons. Let's kick off with some forage wagon chat. Where are we at in sort of, Krone UK success in the forage wagon market? Let's start there.
Yeah, so the forage wagon market, as we've seen a bit of a resurgence there. I remember going back probably 15 years, and when forage wagons really started to show the face again in the UK, and those who knew said it's a short-term fad. By all means, it wasn't going to be around. Don't get excited. Don't invest. It'll be gone in a couple of years. Here we are 15, 20 years later, and they're still here, and they're still a very popular place. certainly in the UK marketplace, with labour challenges this year, in particular, they provide a solution. Those wanting to take control of making their own silage. So yeah, the forage wagon market is still very popular, still very important to us, and we've seen a real growth in there. And I think that can be put down to we've expanded the range over the last few years, and we've made it easier to spec, easier to understand, and made more models there with more capacities. So the two main ranges we look at in the UK are the MX and the RX. Now, the MX is built on a common chassis, but has 3 different volume capacities, and same with the RX. So looking at the MX, we start off with 33 meters cubed. We can put a triangular pivoting front wall on the front, and that gives an extra 4 meters cubed. Go to the back, we can put a back section on there, and that gives us an additional 3. So we go from 33 to 37 to 40 meters cubed. Same for the RX, but slightly bigger. Obviously, it's a bigger range. Yeah, so by doing that, we've offered the customers out there more choice. We've also got some quite interesting features on there as well. A hydraulic axle, hydraulic suspension, that's taken from the trailer side of our business, that kind of technology to sit there a lot more, rigid. We've also got things like Speed Sharp on there, which is a knife sharpening system, allows you to sharpen knives in seconds, and power load as well. Lots of wagons have different auto fill systems, but by using our power load system, it's a modulated. So it's not just we hit the triggers, move the floor back, stop the floor, release the triggers. Ours gradually, the speed modulates. So as you hit the triggers, it slowly starts to move, allowing some plug of grass to go in there to fill in the gap. Then it'll start to speed up, and then when it's time to slow down, it slows down gradually again. It's not the easiest thing to describe, like this, but basically what it means, you get a more even load across the whole load of the wagon. So when you come to put it into the clamp, you're getting a more even load of grass being deposited, which results in better clamping. You're not getting different densities of grass being dropped.
As a manufacturer that produces round balers, square balers, self-propelled foragers, and forage wagons, you must see these products, particularly the forage wagons versus the self-propelled forages, you must see them more as complementary rather than as conflicting. Obviously, I mean, you just mentioned it does suit different types of people as well, depending on what their situation is.
You're absolutely right. Everything we do, we offer a full solution for grass harvest equipment. It's not you must use a round baler. Why? Because that's all we sell. We like to let customers decide which way you want to harvest your grass. Whichever way you decide, we offer that solution there. So forage wagons offer a different kind of chop to the forager. Obviously, we've got more of a coarse chop versus a precision chop. Forage harvesters need higher labour than a forage wagon. So there's pros and cons either way. But then what we also find as well is some contractors in particular who offered sort of 2 or 3 different systems of harvesting will probably could run both. So they'll use the forage wagons for the smaller jobs, the more remote jobs, where they don't need to get the full team in. But then the forage wagons can be utilised in the bigger jobs later on because ours are open tops. Certainly the MX, the RX, and the ZX, they're open top wagons, can be used as a trailer. So in the busy time, in maize, etc., the forage wagon is earning a bit of extra keep hauling maize silage or grass silage on the bigger jobs to the clamp.
So, forage wagons done and dusted. Remember, keep your questions and your comments coming in. Now, we move on to the bit where normally at a grassland event, wherever it is, normally at this point, you've probably got AC/DC playing or something like that, because I know you guys you like to put on a show.
Well, we try.
So let's get into it then. Big X, the grand finale, and it's not just any normal grand finale with the Big X. It's 20 years of Big X as well. I can't believe it's 20 years as well. So, let's kick off with the history of the Big X. Why did one of the burners think, do you know what we need? Let's have a massive forager that's going to take millions of euros worth of investment. So why did you do it in the first place?
It completed, the real simple point of it is it completed our product portfolio at the time. So those of you of an age remember Krone used to make ploughs, arable equipment, trailers, a whole host of general agricultural machinery. Dr. Bernard, the owner at the time, took the decision to say, right, actually, we need to specialise in the late 80s, early 90s. We need to specialise in grass harvest. So along came the big pack, the big M, and then the finale was the big X. So they sat there and they decided in the late 90s, we need a forage harvester to complete. Let's take that risk. Let's go for it. But to make it worthwhile, let's make anything, let's make something that's bigger than anything else on the market. So at the time, 1998, 500 horsepower was huge. You'd have a 3-meter grass header on the front. You might have a 6-row maize header. You were the king. The engineers, the owners, the factory took this and said, let's make something. So it's got to be 700 horsepower plus engine-wise. Grass is still going to be around a 3-meter wide header, more for road transport than anything else, but maize headers, let's go for 8, 10, and 12 row. Six rows was the norm at the time. So, yeah, let's go up there. Let's make something big and bold. And let's also fill it with some unique electronic features out there as well. Some of the things like the auto spout and auto park, the mirroring of the spout in the parking, 40k on the road speed, etc. These were novel solutions at the time, but a lot of them now gone on to be adopted by forage harvester manufacturers, across the board.
At the time, you guys literally a blank sheet of paper. It was like, well, if you have a wish list of what you want on a forage harvester, you guys were just able to do it at the time.
Yeah, and that was the design brief. We weren't, I suppose, shackled by. Although we've got a long history in forage equipment going back to the 60s, if not longer. We weren't shackled by, well, we had a trailed forager. If you put an engine on and we've grown up and up and up and up and up, and all the time we've kind of tried to squeeze a bit more out of it. We could start the other end, and it was a bold decision to start at the other end to say, right, let's make a bigger machine. Let's make a machine capable of a lot. And then over the years, we'll start to turn it down and down and down and, to offer a full range. So, yeah, it was, a bold decision. You say a project that costs, who knows how many hundreds of millions of euros. The development time at the time, Dr. Bernard Krone, said, this isn't going to be a quick payback. It's going to be, many years for this to be paid back. And, which wasn't a problem. It's something the company wanted to do, to offer that portfolio so we could give the full range, to farmers, contractors that you guys out there are like.
And it quickly grew as well, because it went from, that initial development machine, and then it just went straight into 2 models as well. So just tell us about those 2 models, and then if you fast forward a little bit onto the first 1,000 horsepower.
The bigs, yeah. So 20 years ago today, 20th of May 2000 was when the first Big X rolled off the production or out of the assembly hall of the production line. That was just known as a Big X. It had lots of features on there. It wasn't defined. It rolled out. It was revealed to the world. It then went off to start doing some chopping grass locally. Spent the summer chopping grass, chopping maize. Over the next 2 to 3 years, that was developed. More machines were made. A few were sold, etc. To the point we got to 2003. It was apparent this was a success. So that's when we split off. And some of you may remember the Big X V8s and the V12. So 605 and 780 horsepower, respectively, in those foragers. So yeah, it became apparent they had names, they had identities, and they were no longer just a Big X. They were set on a design. And then that started to evolve. So yeah, by 2005, Agritechnica, we saw the launch of the second generation, which saw the big X twin-engined 1000 there. So the first 1,000 horsepower forager on there, and something Krone have been proud to produce, a forager over 1,000 horsepower for the last sort of 15, 16 years.
That's it. And then you just mentioned a few key features before, particularly on the electronic side. Let's talk about sort of the mechanic side of it as well, because it did bring with it quite a few really juicy toys with it.
Yeah, so we gone, early on we decided, the engineers did lots of trials, lots of testing, and it's quickly decided that 6 feed rollers in a high capacity modern forager were required. So we've always had 6 feed rollers. It's something we're stuck with, and that's a real part of the DNA. In terms of the crop flow system, then behind that, it's changed over the years. There's been small changes, but by and large, it's remained the same. A couple of key changes really happened in 2009. We introduced the VariStream system, which is a sprung-loaded drum bottom and a sprung-loaded accelerator backplate. And this just allows for, we talked lumpy swaths earlier on, sadly not everybody out there uses a Krone rake. So, some big X's are harvesting lumpy swaths because they've used other rakes. The Vari-Stream just allows for that flow, that difference in, swath. It takes peak loads out of the engine, out of the crop flow system. So that came along in 2009. And the other big change was in 2015, the max flow drum. So the max flow drum was a part of, it's just a different design of drum. So it gave us 50% more carrying capacity to really help, in particular grass going through there, and really give that extra carrying capacity as forage harvesters are harvesting more grass.
That's it. And then today, where is the family of forages today? Because particularly with, you've now got narrow body and wide body, and just in the wide body, that's now on its 4th generation. So just give a quick overview of, what's the family looking like now?
Yeah, so we've taken the family. The family's grown. We're now 8 machines. So starting off 20 years from the Big X to go into the Big X V8, V12, we've grown. In terms of the range, we have 2 ranges. Basically, we have a narrow-bodied range and a wide-bodied range, and that's referring to the crop flow system. So 630 millimeters wide on the narrow-body range and 800 wide on the bigger, and that's to give the ratio between horsepower and chopping, drum width is quite critical. If you get that wrong, you can have a poor chop, or you can't utilize all the power, etc. So that's why we have the 2 ranges. So yeah, we've always made big foragers. That's always been our mantra. Make a big forager. The world needs a big forager, and we're now at the Big X 1180. Well, we are. So we're now at the Big X 1180, which is 1,100 power, and that pushes all the way down to the smallest of the narrow-bodied machines, which is the Big X 480. So yeah, a range of 8 foragers there from a big horsepower range, all capable, equally at home in grass, whole crop, maize, and also now a lot of common features like the rear wishbone suspension, some of the operation technology, the electronics, the connectivity, what we call Smart Connect, etc. They're all systems which are in common place now as we move into the next 20 years of forager production.
It's 20 years of Big X. What's the next 20 years for Big X? Come on, give me that coy smile that you normally do. You claim you don't, you clearly do.
Just like lose video signal.
Oh, it's going.
Yeah. There's developments. If to say this is it, we've developed a forager, that's it, everything's going to stay still now. We don't need to make any more. There's some developments coming later on this year because of the world we're living in at the moment, the COVID. That's been pushed back a bit. So yeah, expect something new later on in the year. Nothing major, nothing groundbreaking, just tweaks, developments as we go along. In terms of horsepower, personally, I don't see too much of a growth in maximum horsepower. We've seen here, we were now 1,156 as the maximum. That will grow slightly and increase all the time and pushed. We have tried significantly bigger horsepowers than that, but it's actually then about how you handle the crop going through, through a forager. You've got to bear in mind, 1180s in maize, good crops of maize, are capable of 350-ish tons an hour. You go too much bigger, it's actually, what do you do with the crop? I see the future of forage harvesting, as with a lot of other machines we make, isn't necessarily about going bigger. It's about becoming more efficient. How can we make it more comfortable for the operator as well? Because a comfortable operator is a happy operator who wants to spend longer in the cab, is more productive.
Or do we take the operator out of there altogether?
Maybe, but I don't think so. I think there's too much going on. Certainly with the forage harvester, there's too much going on. There's judging the kind of fields we're harvesting grass out of, looking at, you've got the trailer to consider, you've got obstacles in the field, you've got to look at swath variations. I don't know. I might be wrong. 20 years time, you'll be ringing me up, Jake.
Sadly, we enjoy foraging too much as well. We want to stay at home monitoring screens. We just want to be out there.
Yeah, exactly. But if you think some of the technology available now in there, we've got constant power on our foragers. So we set up. We want to get this power and it'll adjust the forward speed to suit the crop swath conditions. We've got, autofill systems, and so the spout can take care of itself. We've got guidance systems on there so it can steer itself. It's becoming, it's still a very skilled job is operating a forage harvester, but there's lots of extra technologies now been adopted on there, which is allowing operators to focus on the next level. So maybe, data recording, silage analysis using what we call agri-NRI, so which can monitor not just your moisture of your forage and the yield, but your different ash contents, etc., proteins, sugars, starches, etc. So that's where I see the future going. I think there's always going to be a place for an operator on the seat. It needs to be, but let's see what happens.
James, perfect. We could easily fill another 2 hours just talking about Big X alone. And hopefully, once all this lockdown shenanigans is over with, we'll be over in Speller and we'll have a few snaps with the two Bernards and we'll do it properly. Exactly. Hopefully, if you've watched this, hopefully you found it useful. Keep your questions and your comments coming in. We'll endeavour to answer it, particularly from the Krone team. It's all about those guys today, and hopefully you've learned a little bit about their products, what they've got to offer, what's going on in terms of their developments and launches, particularly in the UK market and the Irish market as well. So, just once again, James, thank you very much for your time.
Yep, guys, keep the questions coming in. Our guys are there to interact. We're there to help. We're here to support all through these times. So, see you again soon.